Welcome back to my channel. My name is Coach Susan and I'm very happy to have you back on here for another episode of Finance Friday. Now, last week, we had a conversation about budgeting strategies and how you can choose one that works for you depending on your unique situation. Now, for this week's video, I want to build up on that by addressing the single most stubborn thing that really tends to get in the way of our budgeting, and that is unexpected expenses. If I had $1 for every time someone told me, "Oh, Coach Susan, my budget didn't work this month because of something that came up that I wasn't prepared for or something that was unexpected," and be a very rich woman. So today's episode is very, very specific. I'm going to make it short and sweet. I want to talk about how can we maneuver or address unexpected expenses in a way that doesn't always upend our budget every single month. Thank you so much for joining me. Let's get into it. So what exactly are unexpected expenses? These are typically costs that come up like in a surprise kind of way or just suddenly, and you had actually not anticipated them or planned for them in your normal budget. They're not the usual categories that we spend on. So we are talking about things like medical emergencies. Obviously, there's no way to anticipate that that's going to happen. We are talking family emergencies. So it could be like your immediate family or extended family. And if for one reason or the other you support the extended family and they have an emergency, it almost becomes like your emergency now, right? And then, of course, we have things like appliances and technology breakdown. Like if today my phone, which is a tool of trade, had an issue, obviously there's no way to anticipate that. That's an unexpected expense. If your cooker or your fridge is spoiled, they're just things that you cannot not fix. So obviously, that's an unexpected expense. But then there's also others that are not necessarily one specific occurrence or event, and that is higher than usual home bills or utility bills. So you see, maybe for one reason or the other, food goes overboard, or your children's budget goes overboard, or your electricity or water goes overboard. Those are some of the things. So if you are on a very, very tight budget and those things go higher than usual, then obviously you tend to experience some of these unexpected expenses. Obviously, the most effective way to handle unexpected expenses is to have an emergency fund. So before we handle like what other steps you can take, assuming you do not have an emergency fund, I'd like to reiterate it. I know it sounds like I'm a broken record talking about it, but if more and more people embraced the concept of having an emergency fund and constantly funding one, I think we would be doing better with our money management, because unexpected expenses are one of the biggest reasons why we cannot budget well. Now, an emergency fund is simply a savings account where you've saved up a minimum of up to 6 to 12 months of your living expenses. So obviously, if you spend, say, $50,000 every month, a 6 months emergency fund would look like $300,000. Now, that sounds daunting for some people, like it's a lot of money, but I'm such a baby steps person. I always recommend, save up, take some months to save up 1 month's worth of living expenses, and then go to 2 months and then 3 months, right? So don't be intimidated by how huge the number looks, but try to see if you can build up just a little bit of savings at a time. What will that help you? Financial security. When these unexpected expenses come up, even if it's not a scenario where you've lost your job or someone is unwell, they will prevent you from constantly having to take out debt or just kind of like upending your entire budget for the whole month just simply because you did not have money. So having this emergency fund will really, really, really help you to be able to deal with unexpected expenses. Guys, it's the only way. Let no one lie to you that there's another way. It's the only way, because you see, life is not fixed on stone. So there's no way of telling when and how an emergency will come up. So it's good to always just have a stashed away amount somewhere. In Kenya, I always recommend you just put that in a simple money market fund, so that when something comes up, you're able to attend to it. Now that that's out of the way, let's talk about what to do if an emergency comes up, but you did not have an emergency fund in place. The first thing you need to do is to stay calm. Don't panic. Yeah, I know that doesn't sound like financial advice, but believe me, maintaining a cool head is one of the greatest assets during a crisis. When you're able to, first of all, calm down. And I know that sometimes that is something that is very difficult to do when a sudden expense comes up or an emergency comes up. And you know for a fact, like, I didn't have money put aside for this thing. We tend to panic and we tend to start, running around helter-skelter, and it's almost like you just cannot think straight. That's the mistake. The first thing that you need to do is to calm down, maintain a cool head. Because once you're able to do that, then you can think clearly and you can think objectively, and that's the only time you can get into clear solutions mode. After you've been able to establish some form of mental and emotional stability, the second thing you need to do is to now start thinking and assessing the situation clearly, calmly, and logically, right? So one, what is this unexpected expense? Is it a medical bill? Is it a bill that has shot up, a home bill that has shot up that you didn't anticipate? And start questioning, okay, how much money does this thing require? By when should I have this money? If I don't have some money saved up, is there something that I can liquidate or something that I can do away with? Like, start assessing the situation logically. I know sometimes we always feel the pressure to attend to something like real quick, now. I've made a habit to sleep on things lately. Like, yes, maybe you've just come home, your house help or your spouse or your children have given you this, they've dropped a bombshell on you and you're like, okay, where is this money? Don't put on yourself the pressure to like address that immediately. Just sleep on it. And then, think about it and ensure that you dissect the situation logically. So these first two steps are generally just to ground yourself mentally and emotionally. Because sometimes, guys, some decisions we make when we are scared and panicking, Wakenya, we need to stop this, okay? We make some very rash and informed decisions when we are under pressure. And had you just taken a day or two to think about it, maybe you would have even remembered, there's actually this money that was this place, or there's this person who owes me money and I have not asked for it. So ensure that after you've grounded yourself emotionally, start assessing the situation logically. Sometimes panicking is where we make all the wrong money decisions. So once we've been able to ground ourselves emotionally and mentally, and then we've also assessed the situation logically, we know the numbers, we know the deadlines, we know the timelines. These are some of the things that you can consider in case you did not have an emergency fund or some savings set aside. Number one, prioritizing your expenses. This is something that has worked for me time and time again because I am also not immune to getting unexpected expenses. So, how do you prioritize expenses? For me, needs versus wants. And I think I've shared this little tip with you guys as a rule of thumb that I always use when I want to determine what is a need and what is a want. So when I'm doing my needs versus wants, it's a cutthroat strategy, but it works very well. I always ask myself, if my salary or my income was halved today, what are some of the things that I was to spend on this month that I'm sure for a fact I am not going to spend on? So that really helps me. All those things that I know for a fact I won't spend on, it just helps me to know, okay, as much as I'd made them needs, they are wants. So I'm able to clearly separate what are wants and what are needs. So when you prioritize that and you still realize, I don't have money, then you can start also looking at what are some things that I would have loved to spend on or that I need to spend on that I can forfeit this month or in this season to be able to cover this unexpected expense, okay? So you want to actually look at, what exactly had I planned to spend on this month? And now because this new thing here has come that I didn't anticipate and I don't know where the money is coming from, what can I compromise on or what can I forfeit that I think can free up a little bit of money to cater to this. Now, guys, do you know why this is hard for some of us? It's hard because we are not even budgeting in the first place. We don't have an intentional spending plan. So obviously, if you don't budget and you don't have that intentional spending plan, it might be a bit hard to do that. Another option you can consider: could you ask for help? Could you ask for help from a friend, from a family member? And some of you guys come at me in the comment section when I tell you guys to ask for help from your friends or your family. Because I actually had someone some weeks ago ask me, awe ni marafiki wagani wako nao wenye wanaweza kakusaidia kudeal na emergencies? You know, as we don't have friends who can help us to do that. Obviously, I'm just saying, in case, sometimes all you have to do is ask. So that's also an option, asking for help from a family member or a friend, and then you guys can come up with an agreement of how you can pay that up. Why I always recommend this is because sometimes we jump too fast to kind of like take the mobile loans and you know, get ourselves in a formal loan kind of a situation. But obviously that exposes you to interest. And if you guys are not already aware, the interest rates that you pay on some of these mobile lending apps are completely crazy. So try see, is there someone in your circle that you can talk to that can give you that money interest free, and maybe you can pay them the next month. Another thing that you can do is asking for a grace period on a particular bill or a particular obligation, and use that money to cater to this unexpected expense that actually just came up. So that would be like, a grace period could look like, maybe you were supposed to pay someone this month, and labda wako easy. Like maybe that person is just like, you can just tell them, yo, something has just come up. So you see that money that was supposed to pay you this month, I may not able to. Are you able to give me till next month? Maybe it is something that you can forfeit in terms of like, just look at what can I negotiate. I've always loved to tell people, you know, most of us are usually just like, haezi kakubali, you know, this person wouldn't necessarily agree. But like, normalize negotiating and asking. A lot of things in life are gotten by that art of negotiating. Negotiate your way out of some things. See if you can ask for a grace period. See if you can ask for an additional month. It's like how people lose their jobs and they're able to go to their bank or they're able to go to their circle and they're able to provide proof that they've lost their job, and they're given, even if it's 3 months or 4 months grace period, to be able to first of all get back on your feet, and then now you can continue paying that loan. So normalize negotiating. And then lastly, which is like the last option, is you can get a personal loan to attend to that expense. Now, I want to give a disclaimer here. For that to happen, ensure that you have actually, number one, exhausted all these other 3 options. Number 2, ensure that you've clearly done your needs versus wants analysis. And I would only recommend taking out a loan if that particular thing is a need and not a want. So it's so important. If it's gotten to a point where no one can lend you money, there's no bill you can negotiate, there's no other bill that you can forfeit, and you're still unable, so definitely at this particular point, borrowing is your only option. But I highly discourage borrowing for wants, okay? So once you've been able, and this is also something else, there is such power in the word no. Some of these expenses that come up are expenses that have nothing to do with you, are expenses that will not render someone in hospital. And so some of us, if we would just understand saying no, drawing boundaries, being comfortable in being uncomfortable, understanding that it is okay to be inconvenienced for months, 2 to 3 months, some of us would not be getting into loans. So also analyze this unexpected expense and clarify from the word go before you take that loan, okay? Clarify whether that is actually a need or a want. If it is truly a need, then just borrow, then we can proceed on how to maneuver from there. But if it is a want, some of us are just going to have to be okay being uncomfortable. Just say no or decide to do away or take yourself out of that situation. For some of us, it is understanding that other people's emergencies are also not my emergencies. And again, that sounds very cutthroat, but it has helped me a lot. I used to be one of those people that had emergencies every week, and none of those emergencies had anything to do with me. So I had to learn, as I've just shared, saying no, and number 2, understanding don't make other people's emergencies your emergencies. And you see in our African culture especially, there's a lot of blackmail and a lot of guilt tripping that happens with family and relatives. If you can learn to separate like those feelings from the actual issue, which is a finance issue, then you can actually be able to start training those people to not depend on you for their emergencies. They should have their own emergency funds. They should manage their own money. So don't normalize sorting out other people's emergencies to a point that it puts your finances in the ICU, guys. So step number 4 is to actually determine or decide on your plan of action. Make a plan about how exactly you're going to deal with this unexpected expense. Obviously, from the first 3 points, we've addressed like the cause, the decision-making process. So whatever decision you've made, whether that is negotiating on an expense or compromising on another or taking out debt, now we need to put it in place and action. And the most important bit here especially is to stick to the controls that you said you are going to put. So for instance, if you decided that I am actually going to slash this money from my entertainment budget, ensure that you've actually done the slashing of money from your entertainment budget, and stay at home on Friday, stay at home on Saturday, find activities to do in the house on Sunday, because you've decided that to take care of that particular unexpected expense, that's what you have compromised on. If, for instance, you say that I am not going to spend on my hair, or whatever it is that you've decided to compromise, please ensure that you actually do it. Okay? Now, once you've been able to do that, reassess your budget. Obviously, at this particular point, what you had in mind for your budget this month, imeenda. Sasa okay, it's your budget that, that perfect budget that you had done, or that perfect plan that you had done before this unexpected expense came up. It's already been completely upended. And that's okay. Don't worry, it happens to the best of us. At that particular point where you've already decided that I'm going to take out debt, or I'm going to stop spending on this, or I'm going to reduce the budget of this thing, take out your actual budget, reorganize it, reassess it, rewrite it, like do a completely new, different budget that takes into account this new course of action that you've decided to take. So ensure that you've actually put the budget in such a way that it reflects this new place you are. Maybe you've decided to take out a loan. Please include that loan repayment in the budget. Let's say you've decided you owe someone money, and you're like, you've promised them to pay them in installments of 2K every month. Please include that 2K on the budget. So ensure that you rework your budget and reorganize your budget. And this is one of the reasons I tell people, guys, you need to start making budgeting a lifestyle. It's not an event. It's not something that you should just do at the beginning of the year, or something that you should just do end month. I love to tell people it's not obsessive when you constantly are checking in with yourself. Like when you're constantly looking, am I on track? How is this month doing? How did I do this week? Normalize just doing it. There's nothing wrong in between the month, like on 16th or 17th, taking out your tracker or your budget or whichever platform you use and checking in with yourself. So it's okay to completely change. There's no one budget that must be the same as next month. In fact, you can have a budget at the beginning of the month, and midway, you completely change that budget because of something that has come up. Listen, guys, a rigid budget will fail. And that is why so many of us are failing in budgeting. That's why you tell me, Coach, this is so unrealistic. It doesn't work. How do I account for this? It's because you've not allowed your budget to be flexible. You've not allowed it to be fluid. You are almost not okay with changing things and adjusting things along the way. The day you learn to adjust your budget accordingly and to allow it to change and shift as things happen, budgeting will become a tool that saves your life every day, rather than that intimidating thing that you feel you will never figure out. And I want to teach you exactly how to budget for your best life in my self-paced Budget for Your Best Life masterclass. I want to teach you exactly how you can plan so well that you actually minimize the interruptions of unexpected expenses in your budget. So in this Budget for Your Best Life Masterclass, I will teach you how to create a budget from scratch, okay? How to actually build up on it, include mandatory bills and expenses, include things like black tax, include family commitments, and we don't just stop there. I teach you exactly how to plan for your short-term goals, even if it's something as revamping your house, buying things for your children, planning for Christmases and birthdays that just come up and we hadn't necessarily put money aside for it. We go beyond that and we learn how to plan for medium-term goals like things like school fees and even long-term planning like retirement planning. In this budgeting class, I will teach you exactly how to draw up a budget and to work your way through budgeting beyond day-to-day bills. Because if you can look beyond today, then you can be able to plan for the future and minimize the interruptions from unexpected expenses. So if you would like to be taught by me in a self-paced class, please click the link down below to access my Budget for Your Best Life Masterclass. It's a 3.5-hour class that I've taught, and you get to keep that recording for a lifetime, because I know sometimes we need to go back and refer. Now, that Budget Masterclass also comes with a free Excel sheet, the one that we use during the class, because it's a very practical class. It's full of demonstrations. So you will also get a free budget template so that you can actually use it to apply everything that you've learned during that class. In case you're interested to become a guru at budgeting because you've been taught by me, please click the link down below and you will access the budgeting masterclass for 2,750 shillings only. Back to dealing with unexpected expenses. Once you've reorganized your budget and now, of course, you've been able to kind of like maneuver that situation, the sixth thing that you need to do is to learn from this experience. Use this situation as a learning point. Guys, when I lost my job, and I know I keep referring to that, but honestly, like that situation and the mess I found myself in is what made me start taking personal finance seriously, budgeting seriously, saving seriously. It was all fun and games when I had other people like talking about it, but when it happened to me is when I realized that it can happen to anyone. So learn from that experience. Ask yourself, what led me to this place I am right now? And what are some of the preventive measures I can put in place? When we started today's video, we said that the most the guaranteed measure that you can take is to definitely set up an emergency fund. But there are other things. Maybe you've learned that your family controls your spending and you're not in control of your own money. Start learning from that experience and seeing what can change and shift. Maybe you realize that you do not have working sinking funds, because some of these unexpected expenses would be something like, oh, my medical insurance or my car insurance was due. I'm like, that is not an emergency. That is just something that you should have planned for. When you say, oh, my child was going back to school, that's not an emergency. That means there's somewhere where we are lacking in planning. When you say, oh, my child's birthday came up, it's once in a year. Babe, you knew for a fact that your baby's birthday is coming up. So maybe this, when you're looking, don't just like be, whoa, Fuchs, at least I was able to recover from that. Please ensure that as you're recovering, you're also learning from that experience and putting measures in place to ensure that you mitigate against it happening in future. So that could be setting up a couple of accounts, taking your sinking funds seriously and all that, okay? And then lastly, please continue to build your emergency fund. If for one reason or the other, maybe this emergency actually made you to deplete your savings, please, guys, it has happened to me. It has happened to so many people. That's exactly what that emergency fund was for. It was for dealing with an unexpected expense. So if you emptied it and you're at zero, this is your encouragement or your reminder to please go back to building it. I've depleted my emergency fund so many times and I've built it up back again and depleted it all over again. So there is nothing wrong with depleting your emergency fund. Just ensure that you go on beast mode and go back to building it again, so that even if another expense comes up, you're okay. Remember, that account is for that purpose. I've met people who feel so bad that they spent their emergency fund. Listen, that's so exactly what that account was for. So ensure that you're okay with rebuilding it back again, so that you can actually stay prepared. Now, remember, guys, every situation is unique. There's no one size fits all. So ensure that you're proactive, you're adaptable, you're flexible. I keep telling people time and time again that sometimes I feel like if we just worked on our mindset, especially in the area of being adaptable and being strategic, some of us are unable to logically or effectively be able to deal with these expenses, because we also tend to really panic, and because we are panicking, we are not thinking, we don't even ask for help, we don't ask for people's opinions. You don't have access to, say, like a finance coach like myself that you can ask, this just happened, what do I do, or how do I maneuver? Ensure that you just kind of like start practicing. Don't be a panicker. Like, yes, it's okay to feel the fear, it's okay to feel, oh my God, what just happened? It's okay to feel inconvenience. If I'm to leave you with a parting shot today, it would be understanding that a budget should be fluid, it should be flexible, and it is okay if it keeps changing over and over again, because life is not fixed on stone. So as you're learning and practicing budgeting, please allow that to happen. And in that masterclass that I've just told you guys to pick up, I talk a lot about that and how to maneuver being very flexible in your budget and adjusting it accordingly. So I really hope that you've learned something today. Please let me know in the comment section down below. And also remember to share this with your friends so that they can also know how to maneuver unexpected expenses. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next episode of Finance Friday.